for those of you that have been following, you know that I ran out of strips, and so I had to get some new lumber and mill that all up to be able to continue forward with stripping out the bottom of the canoe. So here's one of the new strips, this one here, and you can see it's got the bead and cove on it, which came out pretty nice. At least on this piece, some of it just sort of shattered, and I think in the future, if I make more of these, I'm gonna make my strips just a little bit fatter. So I made these right on at 1/4 of an inch with my caliper, and so when you make the cove edge, which is the concave edge, it really is very fragile. So I think where I cut these at 5/16 so that I could plane them down to 1/4, I might go to an 11/32 just to add a little bit of extra thickness and not plane them down quite as far. I think that'll make them a little bit of a sturdier plank, and since you're hand planing and sanding the end product anyhow, I think that would be fine, and I don't think there'd really be any more waste, because I think I was cutting off about a 1/16 that was waste anyhow. So so adding that 32nd on the two pieces would just make it so that there's no waste. So that's probably one thing that I'll do. And then the other thing is I have one of the old strips and one of the new strips here, and I set up my saw to cut, and actually my router table to cut, based using one of the older strips as basically a setup gauge. So with that, you would expect it's going to come out exactly the same, but looks like the new ones that I cut, I'm not sure if I set up the router to cut a little deeper bead edge, or somehow I cut it differently at the saw or something, but you may or may not be able to tell. But the new piece is about a 1/16 of an inch narrower. So I'm not really sure how much of a difference that's going to make, and we'll see as we start stripping out. But as you can see, there's a difference between the two, and what obviously, if it's a 1/16 of an inch, every inch, or every 16, strips, you would, basically lose an inch. And I don't know that that's going to be perceptible, but we're going to find out. What I did when I stacked my lumber is, since, I had put, these, because my boards were uniform lengths, I had put these scarfs at, somewhat consistent distances. And, so what I did was I just flipped half of them around the other way. So, where I've got these scarfs, staggered over here, I also have them staggered at the other end, or near the, the middle. Anyhow, I mean, they're really not really as evident as I thought they were going to be. But they are still, showing up. I do think once I once I sand them, they're going to show up even less. Here's one. And you know, I think because I used epoxy to do the scarves, I do think that they'll even show up less once they're covered in fiberglass and epoxy. That's a theory, so we'll see if that actually comes true. But I do think it will. You know, they'll keep getting minimized at each step of the finishing process, I think, and you know, they'll be pretty faint. And the nice thing about the scarves, I think, is a typical builder is going to just butt them together wherever, you know, they come up short. And that's going to leave a gap and, you know, somewhat of a weak point. I mean, the fiberglass should hold it together okay. But, you know, if I'm out in the middle of the lake, I want to make sure I'm, you know, as secure as I can be. So those scarves are going to be, you know, 100 times, you know, sturdier than a butt joint. A butt joint has no strength in it. It just is simply going to rely on the other planks around it and the fiberglass to hold it together. You know, the fiberglass sandwich. But the scarf joint is going to, you know, hold together a lot stronger and not have to rely on those other factors very much to, you know, to keep it from, you know, coming apart. So, all right, so I've talked a whole bunch, and I think that's what I'm going to say for now. I do think I'm going to have a lot of work scraping glue off and, you know, sanding this hull and then doing some filling work, but I love the way that it's starting to shape up, so happy with it. Thanks. Well, I'm not having the best of days, so as you can see on the floor here, I'm really not having the best of days, and as you can see by this, what has happened is as I was getting, you know, really getting these pieces around the bends here, 2 planks down, I had one just kind of burst, just, you know, kind of exploded, which isn't really very funny because that meant I had to take off the plank I was working on and 2 planks down. And of course, you know, it's all glued on and everything, so this wood is quite dry and, you know, very thin and just all the other stuff and lots of glue, etc. So having to strip them off is, you know, quite unfortunate, and, you know, something I'm going to have to really think about how to repair, you know, the pieces that have come off. So as you can see, I've cut one, you know, short. I've taken one off, and I took the one off that I was working on. But you can see it's really ugly in terms of, you know, how rough it is, and you can see that the, you know, the cove from the previous board is glued into the bead here, and you know, it just goes on and on. So same thing down here, you know, cut it where I think it mostly, you know, the crack, you know, ended. And the same with this top one, you know, because of course having to tear it off, it all split and cracked all the way down. So just really disappointing. Anyhow, so now I gotta figure out how to clean this up. And I'm just going to wait until all the glue dries and I get some better sunlight than, what I have today, because the lighting in my garage is not the greatest. And, also give it time just to clear my head and think about, the best way to clean this up and repair it. So that I can, A, have a consistent width, B, not spoil the aesthetics of the, canoe, and C, so I can continue to plank, and get this guy finished at some point. But, really, I just sick over it. And it's just a shame, that happened. But, these curves are really, compound curves. You're not only bending, you're twisting, and you're edge setting, all at once. And that's a lot of force to be putting on a 1/4 inch piece of, lightweight, dry cedar. And that one, just couldn't take the racking. And it just happened to be one that was, actually I put it on yesterday, and, as I was putting on this, 3 planks later, I was trying to force the plank that I was putting on down, and, it just couldn't take anymore and popped. And it popped around, 3 or 4 feet long. So it was basically just shot. And then, having to get to it, I had to take off the other one. And then, of course, it started coming apart in pieces. And I had to take off the one that I had 95% in place. And was really already, the glue was already, setting, in particular on the stem, on both stems actually. And, so just sickening to be this far along with it and, have that happen. But, can't make an omelet without breaking eggs, I guess. So, now time to figure out what to do, so that it, is not a disaster, just a little bump in the road, hopefully. Okay, so I went ahead and I've replaced the ones that I've torn out, due to the issue with it popping. I did have some pieces that I had cut out, and so I had to put in some butt joints. And you can see, if you get real close to that, you're going to see there's a gap in there. And that'll get filled in with epoxy and, thickened epoxy, so epoxy and sawdust. But I've gone ahead, those 2 boards have been replaced. Here's another butt joint that I did. And again, that will see the same fate as the other one. And then finally, here's the setup for the butt joint. I have them glued together and then just sandwiched right there between 2 blocks that have tape on them to keep them from sticking. They'll still be stuck there, and I'll have to probably use a hammer or something to pry them off. But anyhow, I think I'm to a point where I'm gonna have some work to do when I'm finishing. But all in all, it turned out pretty good. I'm gonna have to do some filler with epoxy later. But I think it's gonna look pretty good. So when I put this next strip on, I will be back where I was and ready to move forward to start getting after doing the bottom. So when I do the bottom, what I'm going to do is on one side or the other, I will put the next strip on, and that'll get me pretty close. You can see I'm not touching the form there, and that's a little bit concerning. But as I move more towards this what do they call it, stem, as I move more towards the stem, it'll also come in more towards this little peak here, and then once I've gotten to there, it'll be a matter of fitting in the planks on one half and overrunning the middle. And then after you've overrun the middle and you've got it completely done straight down the canoe, you just cut that off, and then you'll start from this side and work towards the middle again. So at least that's the theory, and we'll see how that all goes.